Captain Midnight.
This video is brought to you by Adam and Eve. Go to adamandeve.com and use my code MIDNIGHT to get 50% off one item and free shipping in the US and Canada. Community Season 4 is one of the oddest seasons of TV ever made. I'm sure most Community fans, even the ones who caught up with the show much later on streaming, kind of know why. It's the one season not run by series creator Dan Harmon. But as someone who was watching the show week to week back in 2013, I can tell you it was even weirder in real time. It's a season that has its moments, but also just feels off in a way that I'm gonna try to get into today. That's because even though it's been almost 8 years since Community Season 4 aired, it's still a season of TV that I think about a lot. So let's talk about that, where it failed, and even in a few places where it succeeded.
What happened to you?
Nothing. You never called.
I'm sorry. That was the year of the gas leak, but I won't use that as an excuse.
To understand why Community Season 4 is the way it is, you have to understand the situation that led to it. In May of 2012, Community was renewed for a 4th season, much to everyone's surprise, honestly. The ratings for Season 3 would actually be great for live TV now, but back in the 2012 landscape, they were pretty terrible. So just getting a 4th season at all was exciting. And sure, the renewal announcement didn't mention Dan Harmon at all, which was kind of weird, but everyone just figured there were negotiations still in progress and didn't pay that much attention to it. A few days later, though, it became clear Dan Harmon was not returning to run this new season. The reasons for this, I'm sure, made a lot of sense from Sony's perspective. Harmon was notoriously hard to work with, keeping the writers working until 3 a.m., rewriting scripts at the last minute, and, as he would happily admit, drinking heavily throughout production. By all accounts, the Community writers' room was not a great place to work, and Harmon seems to be the #1 reason why. But to Sony, I'm sure his main problem was his constant delays, which cost them a lot of money that wouldn't have been wasted on a show run a little bit more smoothly. So Sony looked for people who could do just that, and they found David Garasio and Moses Port, 2 writers that had only worked on a few shows before Community, like the perfectly solid Happy Endings and the bizarrely terrible Aliens in America, which only lasted for 1 season on the CW. The plan was for them to step in and give Sony Community without the drama. No more embarrassing public fights with Chevy Chase, or having to pay the crew overtime when Harmon was doing a last-minute rewrite. So I can definitely see why it made sense to Sony on paper. And if Community was like most network shows, swapping out the showrunner probably wouldn't have been a big deal. A show like SEAL Team, which is still going on CBS, can change showrunners, and there's a really good chance that most of its viewers didn't even notice. But Community was not most network shows. It had a rabid fan base who knew Harmon well as the singular driving force behind the show. Stepping into his shoes would not be easy for anyone, but especially for a pair of writers with very little track record coming into it. When you watch Community Season 4, one thing becomes very clear. The new producers really are trying everything they can to win over the show's existing fan base, and that ended up making it feel very strange at times. Community started out in Season 1 as Dan Harmon's attempt to do a broadly appealing, fairly standard sitcom, but he couldn't help himself, making the show weirder and weirder as it went on. Many assumed the new showrunners would try to take the show back to a more standard sitcom. But I think what's interesting about Season 4 is that, for better or worse, they didn't try to do that at all. Instead, Season 4 is desperate to convince you that the show is back and wackier than ever, doubling down on Harmon's high-concept episode style by doing a puppet episode, a body swap episode, and even another paintball episode. I don't think they were doing any of this cynically. Like, I'm gonna be fair to the new producers and say that they earnestly wanted to recapture the magic of the show and give fans the unique style that made it so interesting. The problem, though, was a simple one. For all of Dan Harmon's issues, he was really, really good at writing Community, at having a clear vision and tone for the show that really felt like nothing else on TV at the time. And Season 4 is just the cover band version of that vision. Now, that's not to say that there's no episodes worth watching here. The second one of the season, Paranormal Parentage, was written by Megan Gantz, who would go on to write a lot of great It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia episodes. And I think it works really well. The show always hit Halloween episodes out of the park, and this one is no exception. I think it really nails the group dynamics in a way that doesn't feel forced, which isn't something I can say for a lot of the others. Some episodes, like Economics of Marine Biology, just seem bland and uninspired, but there's a few that I have a hard time going back to rewatch at all. Intro to Felt Surgery is one of the worst episodes Community ever produced. An episode that's so bad, I still have vivid memories of deciding if I was going to turn it off during a commercial break in 2013. I didn't, but I wouldn't have missed much. I understand why it made sense to them on paper. A puppet episode, I'm sure they figured, would fit right in alongside some of Community's more high-concept stories, like Claymation or Ken Burns' documentary homage. The thing is, those episodes had a lot more to offer than just the gimmick, and this episode doesn't. The cast's comedic timing is really thrown off by the puppets, and all in all, it feels more like an uncomfortable experiment that never should have been released than like an actual episode of Community. Still, I will take that over what is, to this day, my least favorite episode of the entire show, Advanced Introduction to Finality, the season finale. Community is a show that's often accused of being smug, and while I see where those people are coming from, I think it was generally clever enough to just 100% back it up. Not here though. This is maybe the most self-satisfied half hour of network TV I've ever seen. I think the line that I'll always remember from this one is Abed saying, "We finally found a way to make paintball cool again." It was maybe the only time I felt like unintentional secondhand embarrassment watching Community. Like the show was trying to convince itself it was as great as ever by forcing some high concept premises without the jokes to back it up. Now, there is some other solid stuff here. The one everyone points to is the body swap episode, Basic Human Anatomy, one of the only ones from season 4 that I don't skip on rewatch. But honestly, the episode after, Heroic Origins, is even better, and is maybe the only episode of season 4 that adds elements to these characters that I actually like. A lot of the other stuff, like Britta and Troy dating, would kinda quickly be forgotten, because like so much of this season, it just felt forced. I honestly didn't hate it like some people did, but their romantic scenes together always felt a bit off. Like the versions of the characters we see here don't really mesh with the Britta and Troy outside of the romance. Community was always a show that liked to flirt with its cast members getting together, but tended to not take it too seriously. Like it let an entire season of Jeff and Britta sleeping together play out in the background without the audience even knowing. So having a very straightforward, sitcom-y romance here was always gonna feel a bit strange, even if the actors do a decent job of selling us on it.
There was that gas leak last year.
Oh, don't blame it all on a gas leak year.
Of course, most of you will probably know what happened next. Dan Harmon was rehired and Community continued on for 2 seasons, losing cast members and most of its budget every step of the way. To me, those first 3 seasons will always be what I think of when I hear the show's name. When Community was operating at its full potential, even as the behind-the-scenes issues were slowly tearing it apart. Seasons 4 through 6 are the oddities, the misfit seasons that all have their moments but come with plenty of issues too, eventually winding things down on Yahoo's screen, a streaming service that I swear actually existed at one point. Of those seasons, season 4 is the worst. And the Harmon-led season 5 would go on to call it the gas leak year, where everyone was acting out of character because a gas leak had affected their judgment. Maybe that's not fair to the many writers who worked hard to capture what people love about the show, and clearly put a lot of work and thought into doing it. That's kind of what I think when watching the best of season 4 anyway. But by the time I finish the finale, I'm more than willing to say it deserves the gas leak label. But I want to know what you think. Do you like season 4? Do you think it's better or worse than the rest of the later seasons? I'm really curious to read your comments and see how many of you are still holding out for 6 seasons and a movie.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started, because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.